Alright, hopefully battery will last longer this time. Alrighty, so we've been talking about arrays a lot, and there's two concepts we're missing. It's enumerators and multi-dimensional arrays, which we talked a little bit about last time. So let's say you have an array of integers. Well, let's make some constants. One I use, man, there are too many. I'm just gonna use 5. Oh, what the hell? So I have I make some macros and to identify days of the week. So I could make an array inside my main function. So in my main, let's say I'm asking, this is similar to your homework with the rain. Yes.
I was wondering, how did you determine to make the days of the week constant instead of integer right away?
You'll see.
Yeah, I see that it wasn't in a variable, but it was right away. It was a constant.
Well, days don't change, right? Months don't change.
Days don't change.
So if I have an array of integers, let's say, let's use an array of doubles instead, right? So and let's say how many hours I work. So, I guess I need another define here for the size of my array, right? Of course, it's in a separate line. So just want to know how many hours I work in a week. So I could make a loop, start asking, how many hours each day. The user enters, and then you can figure out if you make overtime or not. If you work over, 10 hours a day and 40 hours a week, you get 1.5, and if it's your day off, it's 2 times something. I wish we get any overtime here. Sometimes I have to grade so much.
if you don't assign us homework, you don't have to grade us.
right? Wait, how will I know you learned?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
Be careful what you wish for. So, I could do something like this. I'm not gonna ask the user. Skip that part.
Oh, God.
So I can say on Sunday, you work 0 hours, I took Sunday off. But yesterday, they made me work for like, I don't know, 10.3 hours. I hate Mondays. And so on, right? So you could use a constant to indicate the days of the week. But sometimes, users definitely have fat fingers. Sometimes they type with their elbows, I think. I don't know what they meant. But sometimes you make mistakes, especially if you haven't had a coffee yet. So, let's say I make this one an 8. Instead of having 7, maybe I have a very long list. So if I do this Wednesday, I'm actually outside the bounds of my array, right? It's easy to catch there because there's only 7 of them. So remember at the beginning of the semester, I told you why we have an int here and we have return 0 here. You recall? Why do we put return 0? Well, it's an integer, but why do we return 0? What if we return something else?
It has an error.
No, well,
Yeah, you return the error number basically. So, if you go to a website and the page doesn't exist, you get this error 404, right? You know what 403, 402, 401, all the other ones are? Imagine doing the define for all of them. That's when you can make a mistake on the number, right? It gets really, really long. If there's an error inside the website's fine, but exists, but the page doesn't load properly, you get this error 500 that says internal server error. And technically, you can write or make your own error codes or values, if you will, using constants, but it will be very time consuming. It will be nice if they were actually in an array of integers and the values were sequential. Instead of 8, of course, it will have 3. So how can I do that? Well, you know how to do it because you read the chapter before coming. We've been talking about chapter 7 forever. So, let's erase this for a second. So, I want to make my own types. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to define my own type, and I use this keyword, type definition. It's there. So this type definition, what are you defining? Well, I want to have some sort of array of integers. I want to name them whatever I want. So I'm going to call this an enumerator. It's called enum. An enumerator basically says you don't have to do all those defines. Actually, it doesn't become a macro, it becomes an array. And then I can say Sunday, Monday. I can do it like this. But let's close it here. I have to give it a name. And what kind of name? Well, these are just weekdays, so I'm just gonna call it I'm gonna do capital letters for the sake of the example. Weekday. So what happens now, I created my own type. What is the type? Well, integer is a type, double is a type, it's a variable type, right? When you declare a variable, you declare variable type and then variable name. If that's a type, then I can declare a type. Called weekday now, because I defined the type. And this, let's call it week 10, for instance. 10th week of the year or whatever. And now this becomes my own type that only allows these values. So in your book, so, for instance, this is an array now. An array of integers, and they have the values like that. But instead of using the number, I can use something more easier to read, I guess. Not more easier, I mean easier to read. So instead of referring to numbers, instead of saying error 404, I can say page not found and give you that value. So let me erase this for a second. We'll use that in a minute. I can do this now, like I had it before. So now I can do the same thing as I had before. Whatever. So I can use this as it's like using the define. In reality, I made an array of integers from 0 to 6, and I create my own type. In other words, like I had it before, I'm just gonna write it here. I had it week 10. Oh, let's call it this week. Or today. I'll call it today instead of week. So today became a variable type, variable name. And the values will have to be one of this. Today is Tuesday. Just makes it easier to read, doesn't it? So you could do another one. Oops. I haven't had my coffee yet. I can start no error, for instance. A bunch of errors. Eventually I get to page not found. And then add more, maybe I got internal. Server error. I'll get to the end, and then I call this error codes. So what it does is assign this value 0, 1, 2, whatever it got here to this one was item 404, this was 500, and so on. Now, something you gotta learn, people who, regular users, they call it errors. It's not really an error. You're not gonna call it errors. You're gonna call it exceptions. And there's a difference. An error is something you can't do anything about. Power went off. Where are you gonna display an error message? Power went off?
What could you with your power?
Right. Or your hard drive's full. Can't do anything about it. The user has to do it. Delete some files. Your iPhone has too many pictures, and videos, and most of them are from your cat, I don't know why. My friends her cats has Instagram accounts. I don't know why. Unfollow. So, errors happen when there's a need of an external action by the user. And you lost connection, you're out of Wi-Fi or whatever. You probably can't do anything about it. An exception is something that the computer doesn't know it shouldn't happen. And you gotta tell the computer. And the exceptions are said to be thrown. Some programs said to be raised, but most of them are just throw exceptions. For instance, the computer doesn't know that division by 0 is not defined. So you, as a programmer, gotta tell the computer, hey, if you're dividing by 0, throw an exception. That's not an error, that's an exception. But for the regular user, we're gonna say these are errors. Everything is an error. Don't know what an exception is. Okay? Questions about the enumerators? Easy stuff, huh? Wish I had started with this, huh? Well, it's actually that's 7.7 section. It's section 7.7 in your book, so you gotta go through the other 6. And that took almost, what, 2 weeks? Alright, so now the next thing we have to talk about is word parallel arrays, which I didn't mention, and multi-dimensional arrays. So let me erase this for a second. So a parallel array simply means there are 2 arrays. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'm not going to use the enumerators. And I'm going to say I have 2 arrays. And so I'm going to have an array of integers. This week, I'll call it. Should say week size, but we'll just keep it like this. And then I'm going to have hours worked. And will be the same size. So the idea is they're got together. So for instance, you can make a for loop here. So if I didn't have the enumerator, I will have to indicate each day to initialize it to 0 to 6. Maybe as the user. And then use the scanf, and I'm going to enter a long float, right? And where I'm going to put it in the hours worked. But this wants the address, not the value, so I cannot forget my unsigned. So, then I want to do some statistics. I want to sort the array of the hours worked, but I also want to keep the week. So I want to say, oh, the lowest one was Sunday, so I want this one to be 0. The highest one was Monday, let's say, so Monday should be the last element of the array in both. Follow me? So we did this algorithm before, right? We did 2 for loops. I'm gonna put another double here, 10. Just my temporary. To do the swap. Actually, I need 2. I'm not use temp double. I'm gonna have another one here, temp int. And this is an integer. Just because I need those for swapping purposes. So I'm gonna use I equals 0, I less than the size of the week. Minus 1, remember that, I plus 1. And then I'm gonna use k from equals I plus 1, k less than the size of the week. I think in the example I call it current element, rest of the array or something, but I don't like to type that or write that much anymore. And then we had an if statement here. So if the value of this week I is greater than k. We're gonna swap them. And how do we swap? Well, we use the temp int, right? To hold the value of oh, I'm sorry, it's not this week, it's hours work. So So, I sorted my array, the hours worked, in an ascending order, but I also sorted the array of integers, which is called this week, to match the hours work. So the hours work array is going to be sorted, the other one is not, but that's just to keep the correlation. So if I want to know what day, so do this. So if I want to know what day was the one with less hours, all you gotta do is look at the first element of the array. Let's see. So this one, to printf, I'm gonna say laziest day was what day? I'm gonna write it here so it fits on the screen. This week. Zero. I'm gonna say with percentage float hours. And if I want to say what was the busiest day, day will be the last element of the array. There. Okay, barely fits. Alright, so if I sort my double array, I sorted this other array that are correlated. And I think you're ready for a project. Yeah, you are. Easy stuff. Question. So basically all it is, parallel arrays, is two arrays hand to hand. So like when you go to this dance and then you, like, you know, in a wedding or whatever, you got your partner, and then no matter where you go, you gotta follow your partner, right? They all together. See, you got an array of bridesmaids, and then you bridesmaids, and you got an array of groomsmaids or whatever you call it. Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to.
Australian woman, I guess. Hey, mate. So, any questions? So I'm going to introduce you to another concept. Easy. So the first element of this array, we're going to call it head. And the last element of the array, we're going to call it tails. Easy, just like a coin, right? And these arrays, all the elements are going to chain together. So you're going to learn about queues. And you send something to the printer, and it's a network printer, many people are using it, so there's a print queue. Print queue says the first one that got in is the last one that got out, gets out. So if you're printing one page, but somebody before you is printing like a whole book, it's annoying, right? Like, don't kill the trees, we're paperless. And there's another concept that took the book talks, and we've been using it a lot. It's called the stack. Remember when I draw the RAM and then I start at the bottom, and you say, we add it to the stack, we declare a new variable, we add it to the stack, and we call the functions, and then once we're done with the functions, start getting rid of those until we go back to the original one. That's called a stack. So in other words, the first one that got in is the last one to get out. And they use arrays for that. So in a queue, the head is always the one coming out first. In a stack, the tail is the one that's always coming out first. And you just gotta remember what number is the tail. So, questions? Yes.
I can't tell the name of the program. What's the name of this parallel array program, sir?
It's not a name of a program, it's just an approach.
It's just an approach.
I mean, it's just, I guess, programming style, if you will.
For hours work.
Yeah, I think it's in like 7.8 or 7.9 section, I don't know, somewhere there at the end of the chapter 7. You'll find it. All right, no questions? No more? Got another question?
I passed.
Okay.
Good statements.
All right, let's take a few minutes.